The German campaign of Company of Heroes 3 is all about the vehicles and their funny gimmicks. Some are small, some are medium, and some are fast. But in all that wind, you sometimes forget about the most basic unit type, that being infantry. With that being said, is it really possible to beat the DAK campaign without using them? Let's go over the rules. The game is set on expert difficulty. I am not allowed to use any kind of fuel-based vehicle to attack, and instead I have to use manpower-only units. Munition abilities are fair game, and emplacements are also pretty okay as long as they don't cost fuel. And I can recruit things such as a placement or team weapons because let's be honest, it's still infantry and it's still manpower based, so I don't see really any problem with that. So with that out of the way, let's start. The first mission starts surprisingly hard as I am given 2 Panzer IIIs and 2 Panzer Grenadier squads. The problem is that I need to destroy about 5 tanks with infantry alone, and bolt action rifles, while pretty good against infantry, they don't exactly work wonders against armored targets. So I began tinkering. Firstly, I ordered my tanks to hold fire, as they will serve me as meat shields for the rest of the sections. Now that I have my Pigrins covered, I moved in to destroy the Humber armored car, and as it doesn't have the greatest armor, I am able to pepper it down with small arms fire. Now that Humber has been dealt with, I can move on to the trenches and finally help my Italian brothers. To do so, I need to destroy 2 Stewards and a Matilda. This is also an interesting tank. See, when the game asks you to flank it, it really means it, as it has about 500 armor on the front, making it almost impossible to penetrate. Even more so given my no penetration and no income situation. Oh yeah, I also forgot that you don't get income in the intro. Neat, right? Thankfully, Relic has left me with one other source of anti-tank outside of AT grenades. The 2-pounder light AT gun. It's not exactly good, but beggars can't be choosers, no? Once I get the Matilda to half-health state, the phase 2 begins, where 2 infantry sections and 2 to 3 light vehicles join the fray, and also that heavy tank finally stops being static, which almost kills my AT gun and forces me to start over. However, soon enough I get to destroy all the tanks and I'm allowed to get to the mission proper. After building the infantry support gun and a Pigrins squad, I am tasked to restore a Stuk or a Flame Panzer III to a living condition, and then finally, game lets me to actually play properly. My task is to take 3 objectives: the village to the south, the fuel depot to the northwest, and another village filled with dancing Africans to the northwest. After that, I am tasked with destroying a British convoy that is pulling out and is going to cross the northeastern village. So I get to work, and my composition was pretty simple: 1 Pigran, 1 Panzer Pyros, and 3 Guastatoris. It is quite an unusual number of them, you might be saying, and you would be correct. See, in normal circumstances, I would go with something more cost effective, and Guastatoris aren't really exactly the definition of it. However, they do have a pretty potent AT capabilities in form of a veterancy locked AT satchel and a demo charge. And you might be wondering, why is demo good against tanks? Well, they are kinda broken, as if not broken that they deal an insane amount of damage, that's by the way. It's more about that they explode when Guastatoris are still planting them, leading to me essentially having 3 kamikaze squads, which aren't even going to suffer from explosions because friendly fire from demos is virtually non-existent. Like, I would lose maybe 1 model and get suppressed, so this tactic is unironically viable. With that out of the way, I reclaim the southern village and trenches and ignore Rommel-chan telling me to set up the Flak 88 because honestly, I don't really need it, and if you are not going to set it up, it seems that the trigger won't activate and more enemy tanks won't spawn or something. I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, while on the high ground, I also mine the road in anticipation of the final section of the mission, and I start assaulting my final objective. After some demos, grenades and MG fire, the village is finally mine and I can't wait for the British to arrive. Also, in the meantime, I discovered that you can stack demos on mines. At least kinda. The free convoys that they sent weren't intimidating at all, and after a couple of mines exploded, I passed the mission without using any tanks. The next mission opens up in a canyon and I am to destroy some British tanks. Again. Here's the problem though, half of my pop cup is filled with those trash vehicles that I'm never going to use, including the most cost-effective tank destroyer in the game, and the least cost-effective tank in the game. Anyway, the strat is pretty similar to what I did previously, that being getting Guastatoris, blow up tanks with them and try to not die in the process. In the meantime, I had also noticed an abnormal amount of British AT rifles laying around, so I ditched upgrading the flamethrowers on Guastatoris and instead I opted to equip all my infantry with stolen boys. Jesus Christ, that sounds very bad out of context. Soon enough, I get to the center of the map, and I get the medical center operational. With that, I am able to tackle the final tanks left in the canyon and it- wait, what the shit? What? What Churchill Black Prince is doing here? That's supposed to be the command vehicle? Really? Couldn't you use like a vet-free Matilda instead, or a command Churchill? I know that the latter is sitting in the files, but you just refuse to... forget it. After a pretty close call, which would result in me losing my entire army, I kill the Black Prince and pass the mission. Gazella starts with a defensive segment. You are given 2 Panzer Pioneers, 2 Panzer Grenadiers and an MG-34. And on top of that, you also get a flak track and a command half-track, which spots enemy in the fog of war, which is pretty neat, but not exactly in the spirit of the challenge, so it stays in the base. The defense itself is quite frankly pretty tense, as I don't really get any income or reinforcements, forcing me to actually think for once. However, soon enough, my savior Rommel appears, and I can finally get into the mission proper of breaking through the multiple British defensive lines. After getting rid of the unwanted crap that Relic gave me, I proceeded to build my composition for this mission, consisting of 2 or 3 Guastatoris, 2 Panzer Grenadiers and 2 Panzer Pioneers, with grenade launchers, and an Assault Grenadier. With those units, I set to conquer the main trench line and after 3 tries, I finally managed to take hold of the central trenches and the surrounding area. Moving on to the hill that oversees the main objective of the so-called gates, I managed to take control of them and slowly gather my Panzerjägers, which is a pretty crucial unit which will come in handy later. With that being said, I hold an assault onto the gates and I managed to take control of them. However, the problem is that I don't really have any kind of healing nearby, making the British counterattacks impossible to resist, so this attempt goes to the trash. On my next attempt, I decided to attack the northern side of the map. Alongside that, I decided to make more Panzerjägers before I seriously began to penetrate the British lines. And I was stowed by a single machine gun for an unbearably long amount of time. However, with some half-track shenanigans, I was able to break through towards the British garrison in the village, neutralizing the artillery spotters along the way. Having hindsight of knowing what's to come, I deliberately didn't capture the second point and started planting mines, placing barbed wire and other things. Hell, I would probably even make some bunkers if I wouldn't be cut off, but hey. Well, you know, shit happens. But anyway, some attacks later, I was able to finally drive the British back and pass the mission. Hey look, it's Road to Tunis! Whoa! Can we get like 2 Sojaks pointing at the screen? Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's a reuse campaign mission, who would have guessed. Anyway, objective of this one is to destroy British convoys and try not to fall asleep at the same time. The mission is pretty short as the game gave me a lot of resources to play around, including like million AT guns and an 88mm with a towing truck to boot, so I was able to stop the convoy in all 3 instances. Besides that, you could also make a barbed wire wall and just stop the convoy in its tracks, so yeah, it trivialized the mission even harder. Yeah, not really much to talk about it over here, honestly. Conceptually, I think this might be my favorite one. You are tasked with assisting your ally with getting 3 signal tracks out of the map while you are constantly attacked by British infantry, and later on, Also tanks. This mission took me a couple of tries, which yes, is a little bit embarrassing, however I managed to get 2 out of 3 command half-tracks out of the map, finishing the mission. And honestly that's it. I can't really say much about it outside of, you know, me cheesing the infantry of emplacements and using Westatories as AT. Jesus Christ, it sounds so cursed in multiplayer context, but it's just how it is in the campaign. Tobruk is probably the most painful mission of the playthrough, and it's not even because it's difficult or anything. You just have to be patient. It was more because I had to try it for 3 times. Once I simply failed, and for the second time I managed to pass, however, the game gave me a middle finger, and after watching the epic cutscene I couldn't continue because... no, the game just said no, I suppose. Wait, what? Why I can't do any... Very cool. With that being said, Tobruk is quite a slog, being separated into 3 painful segments. First one is a non-built one, where you have 2 Panzerpiles and 2 Pigrens against a dozen of Australian squad and a Vickers, which has like the best positioning of any HMG in the game, hands down. And none of it would have been a problem if I had access to, you know, manpower income, or if the AI would not abuse the snipe ability of the Australian squads. Also, very fun ability, very fun to play against. I can't wait when the Australians are eventually going to hit multiplayer and... oh no. Oh no. Regardless. After like 20 minutes of taking down squads one by one, I kill everyone and claim the outpost for myself. The second segment is quite simple in its premise, which is to break through the enemy lines. 2 of them actually. And without armored support, it looked more like a World War I style assault more than anything else. It was bloody, it was brutal, but in the end, I managed to persevere and complete my objective. Next section involves setting up on the crossroads nearby and destroying every single British armored fighting vehicle that comes across. And if you had wondered why I have double AT guns and so many Panzerjägers, well, now you know why. A couple of mines, barbed wires, which only wasted my time, and the convoys turned into smoldering piles of wreckage. Bolt Thrower would have been proud. Mission 7 is quite easy. You have to raid a British storage facility and GTFO after the fact, while having in memory that there's a British patrol which could come back anytime soon. And when it came, I learned it was like the least menacing English unit ever conceived, and I just laughed at it with my strafing runs and carried on with my objective of destroying the Commonwealth fuel. Long story short, it was pretty forgettable. The final mission in the campaign is the first battle of El Alamein, and just like its predecessors, it's divided into 3 parts. Firstly, you have to assault the ridge and take down 25 pounders, which are constantly bombarding your base, and then you have to destroy even more fuel, and then go back to the ridge and survive the British counterattack. The first section is rather easy. You have all the tech available, and there was a problem. The AI destroyed my tier 1 building and I was unable to spam manpower only colons, making my initial pyros with AT rifles nearly priceless, as they were literally the only AT on the ridge later on. The second part throws me on the other side of the map, where I'm supposed to destroy the fuel of the British. I decided to finally use my panzers in a meaningful way, and order them to destroy the fuel tanks, because honestly, I couldn't care less at this point. The campaign was really boring. It did kinda work. I managed to destroy 4 or 5 down before both P3s die. The rest of the work has been done by infantry, and Relic thankfully left me a perfect tool for it. The Besagleris. Using their sprint, I managed to call in stupid dive bombs before they died like true heroes. The third part was a hold the line type of deal. You know, millions of things coming at you, hold these strategic points because we are not going to punish you for having them captured, surprisingly. It was pretty hairy at some points, however, in the end I prevailed and beat the DAK campaign without spending any fuel on tanks. Hey! Editing the gap here. Listen, how about you say in the comments if you want to see more of those kinds of videos, because I do have a plan on taking down the entire Company of Heroes franchise and making stupid challenges out of them. What do you think about it, huh? Say. It sounds absolutely clambertastic, isn't it? So yeah, if you are down for that, leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and you know, have fun, I guess. So yeah, till next time.